from a more granular and tactical perspective, I can't speak for all areas of law. And I think we spent most of our conversation talking about how we can engage with technology to create deeper connections within the management of law firms and all of that. But I can't speak to all areas of law, but in terms of my particular area, which is public procurement, public sector contracting, I think it's a very, very important time because there's some risks associated here and there's some opportunities. I think the issue about force majeure is very important. That's something all contracts right now should be audited for their force majeure clauses so that parties can understand what their responsibilities are and what they will be held to. And that's going to be quite a fact-specific exercise because there are different ways in which force majeure clauses can be drafted. And the courts have been very reluctant to use discretion in force majeure clauses. They look to the specific wording, are pandemics and epidemics included, you know? And if not, and it's act of God only, then there's going to be all sort of arguments about whether a pandemic is an act of God. And so I think certainly there's going to be a lot of work for lawyers unraveling and supporting all of these contractual lack of performance that is happening and is going to even explode. So that's one major thing. The second, okay, you wanted to jump in, Curtis, but I do.
Beyond that, yeah. As you were talking, I realized that it is also an opportunity. So in terms of crisis management response, that's definitely a huge point. It's also a huge point as an opportunity as certain structures fall apart, that we build new ones in their stead. Yeah. And that doesn't happen in a linear fashion. It happens at the same time. So the same force majeure clause might be, so exclusive announcement, the force majeure clause might also be the first clause that is agreed upon and decided in a universal way through this. It's an opportunity for that to happen, essentially.
Also from the context of procurement, I mean, I think an issue that's going to arise, and it may have arisen for some governments already, is emergency procurement. That is when things are so overwhelming, you cannot go with your standard offers, you cannot go with what you've had in place, or your supply chain has been disrupted for some reason, and you need to immediately and quickly procure supplies, emergency supplies for certain things for your citizens. And you see governments taking on more and more responsibility in this health crisis. And so what's going to happen in an emergency procurement situation, governments are allowed not to follow the standard rules of procurement so that they can move more quickly to get what they need. There is a risk there. There is a risk there for a lack of accountability and corruption and all of that. And so here again is an opportunity for governments to be far more transparent, leveraging technology to be more transparent and get immediate offers in a transparent way in a public digital space. So, I mean, that's an ongoing issue that governments and public agencies will have to start to look at. And even in the private sector, they're going to have to start looking at doing those kinds of things. And so a lot of us have been clamoring for more e-procurement for a while. Again, this crisis is going to force us to take on e-procurement. And then finally, in the context of procurement, you will see more of an emphasis on how do we measure the social value and the ecological value of what we are buying. You will also see, which we have been clamoring for from before, you will also see more of a focus on local procurement, development of the local economies, because we can't depend so much on the air and the shipping, and how do we build resilience locally. So, I mean, it's going to transform, but in my perspective, from public contracting perspective, this is a bomb that has been dropped in the middle for governments, and it's going to require lawyers to really demonstrate some leadership in those contracts and in those contracting arrangements, and to really be equipped to advise governments how to go forward in this uncertain environment.